Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for the month of January. This is the first meeting of 2008. Before I open it up for public participation this evening, I'm going to ask the members of the Board of Finance to introduce themselves, beginning on my right with Kevin.
Kevin Moffitt.
John Cifarelli.
Kevin McNabola.
Kevin Houlihan.
Jim Leahy.
I'm guest here, Jack Levine, Finance Director of Amity.
Richard Zarena.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Since there's no one in the audience this evening, we can probably bypass the public participation piece. Next item on the agenda is discussion and approval of the minutes from our December 17th regularly scheduled meeting. At this time, I'd ask you gentlemen to kind of review the minutes. Take a look. Let me know if you have any changes or adjustments.
Kevin, I just got a couple of easy ones.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Up at the top, starting with the board members present, we probably should recognize Rich as the alternate sitting in there. And then under the first vote that I made the motion to approve, it says the motion passed. We probably should say motion passed either unanimously or 4-0.
Which one are you looking at? You looking at the first one
Under
or bullet three?
Between
Yep.
3 and 4.
Yep.
And then under 4, the motion passed. That should either be the same thing, 4-0 or unanimously.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's all I have.
Any other adjustments or changes to the minutes? Okay. Any more discussion? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes with the changes presented by Mr. Cifarelli.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as corrected.
Okay. I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Any abstains?
I'll abstain.
We're abstaining.
3 abstentions.
Right here.
And we have 3 pass, yeah. You guys are abstaining because none of you guys were here, correct?
Yeah.
Well, motion fails. It's 3-3, so.
Richard.
Oh, Richard. I
No,
didn't,
Richard.
I didn't realize you voted, Rich. Okay. Very good. Motion passes.
4-0.
4-0, yes.
See what happens when you pull a hamstring? No respect.
Okay. Moving on to the next item is the 2006-2007 financial update. And with that, since we just had our recent audit completed, just within the last month or so, we had a review last week with the auditor. I kind of wanted to go through some of the financials, talk about the the past year on the financial side, and talk about some of the corrective actions that have been taken by the management team within the past year. So with that, I will go into the presentation.
This one, Kev?
Yep. The topics that you're looking at are basically the topics that we're going to cover this evening. The first being the financial update of 2006-2007 performance. Following that, we will have a Amity financial update of the current year expenditures by Jim Leahy, representative of the Amity Board. And then we're going to go right into the Amity budget presentation for 2008-2009, which will be conducted by Jack Levine, who is here with us this evening to give us the budget update for Amity. And then following that, we'll have the first Selectmen's update presentation of the fiscal year 08-09, and then finally a review and discussion of the current year financials for 07-08, which will be done by ourselves and Pam. So without any further ado, I just wanted to get into the fiscal year ending 2007, June 30th. You can focus your attention to the bottom half of this page. This is basically a kind of an income statement of the general fund, and I'd like to talk about the budgetary figures versus the actuals. So basically, this is a comparison of 07 budget versus the 2007 actuals and where we landed on both the revenue side, which is on your left, and the expenditure side, which is on your right. And you can see that basically the budget for 2006-2007 was $49,959,000. On the revenue side, and we came in at $50,665,000, which is a $706,000 surplus on the revenue side. mainly driven by intergovernmental revenues and investment income. We had a big portion of the intergovernment revenues that came back was actually the Amity refund that came back. That was a big piece of that. And the investment income of mainly $500,000 was really largely driven by proactive strategies in investing in stiff accounts and other treasury-related items that both Al and Pam and Jim have kind of taken a look at to see where's the best place to invest the town's money to kind of get that interest income. So that's on the revenue side. Those are kind of the two key drivers for revenues.
Kev, what caused the reduction from what we had planned on the transfer from other funds? You see that negative 415 there?
Yeah, a part of that, Pam, is the, go ahead, Pam.
Those items, the 404,000 and the projection of 819 come from our police special duty, the OVNA, and also Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec and OVNA came in less than projected last year, and police special duty was slightly above. If you recall, we were diligent with our collections, and that pretty much makes up that deficit. And just for your own information, this year it looks like we're probably in very good shape with OVNA, on target with police, and not too certain about Parks and Rec yet, but stay tuned.
Okay, thank you.
And on the expenditure side, which is on the right-hand side, you can see that we basically underexpended our operating budget on the expense side by about $211,000. And a big piece of that was the employee benefits section, which I think was largely driven by the co-payments. That was the big driver for that underrun, with some offset from other areas. Public works, they came in higher than planned overall because of their expenditures on oil and gasoline, which was at that point in time. Those costs, as you know, escalated throughout the year, and they had used lower figures as part of their contracts and kind of got behind the eight ball a little bit on that.
Kev, how do I understand the top part? Is those?
Those are just kind of that's the general fund on a GAAP basis, basically generally accounted.
So that would
practices.
be on an annual, yearly basis?
That's the annual, yearly basis
okay.
of revenues and expenditures from 99 through 2006.
Okay.
So if you wanted to look at and get a feel for where expenditures landed in 2006 versus 2007, you can see the 48.8 million versus the 50,665,000 versus the 50,964,000, just to get a feel for what revenues and expenditures have done overall on a budgetary basis. But those are two different scenarios. You have one's a budgetary basis, one's a GAAP basis. So GAAP is the way that it gets also written up in the audit report as well. So.
Okay.
So that's looking at the numbers. Looking at it visually, to kind of look at it from a chart perspective, you can see the green graph and the green bar indicating the actual on revenues versus the budget. So we came in $706,000 over where we had projected and budgeted. And the two major drivers within revenue were, as I indicated, investment interest and interest on liens as well. Those are two main drivers that represent that $706,000.
Okay.
On the town side, on the expenditure side, you can see that we underran by 211, and that's largely driven by, as I indicated, employee benefits and public safety, with a little bit of offset, as indicated earlier, by public works because of the cost of escalating fuel cost and oil and gas. Public safety came significantly under their budget because of the vacancies, namely in salaries within the police department. So those are some of the key drivers on why expenditures came under plan for the year. And as a result, you can look at the overall surplus here, $917,000. You can look at it collectively from a revenue standpoint of being over budget and expenditures being under, collectively at $911,000. All that money then gets channeled into the town's bank, or we'll call it the operating surplus, if you want to look at it from a visual perspective on how that happens and where it goes.
I think these are very instructive.
The orange management actions, delivering results for 0607. As I indicated earlier, this board, this team, the Z team that Jim has assembled, along with this Board of Finance, has worked very well collectively to kind of look at driving best processes within the organization, and looking at the results that we've gotten over the past year, it actually was a great year for the team. I mean, basically, a lot of these things that are on this list that I put together basically address a lot of the things that were on the audit report a couple of years back. And we have made steady improvements and continuous improvements on better cash management due to improved timing of payables and deposits. As a result, we get greater funds availability for investment. The implementations of processes and procedures, basically with a new treasurer on board, relatively new finance director. I've been here now for almost a year and a half. Almost, I'm sure it seems longer than that.
At times.
We have strict adherence to the purchasing and procurement practices that we put in place, and we have better expenditure control overall, because a lot of what happens now from a requisition standpoint has to go through Pam and her office. We've also made some great strides on account consolidation. We've asked Pam a year ago, when Pam first came on board, that this board was interested in consolidating the accounts, reducing the breakdown of the general ledger accounts, and getting more understandable reports, which essentially improves controls. You know, the streamlined reporting that we had talked about, that Pam has presented to us now, kind of helps improve those controls. The debt administration, as you know, we just recently passed a new debt investment policy, which calls for new strict guidelines. I'm not going over debt service of 7%. Timely payments of tax and debt service liabilities, and this basically, the result is elimination of tax penalties with no supplemental interest charges, which we would typically get hit with. On the investment side, another great story to tell. Obviously, the consolidation of investment accounts has driven our treasurer to kind of take a more proactive approach on driving the investment strategy and putting our money in higher growth yields, which has basically given us a better return on our investment. So basically, through proactive and targeted investment strategies, the general fund on interest income has almost tripled since we've gotten here. Since many of us have been here since 04, 05, but since then it's actually tripled, which is great.
Well, it's not only that, though. We have a higher fund balance, and the interest rates have gone up, so it's not just
absolutely
all
yeah.
that.
All
It's
goes
not
hand in
just
hand.
that.
That's fair.
Yep.
And then another question on the debt service. I don't remember ever paying tax penalties for not paying our debt service on time. Did we?
That might be misleading. The no supplemental interest charges is due to many of the payroll taxes not being paid in a timely manner. That was before I came, but only months before I arrived. I know Al Chiarenzelli shared with me that there were a number of issues with payroll taxes not being paid in a timely manner, and there were significant charges.
Penalties for that, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
it really isn't debt service.
Yeah, I
and
kind of
it's
bucketed
it's
in
our
there, right?
payroll taxes. Okay.
Okay.
The monthly reconciliation, basically now establishing cash controls and cash proofs, which has taken great strides over the past year. And obviously that was indicative in the audit report that you guys received last week, where you saw that. We're making progress on that. Better accuracy in revenue and expenditure recognition as well. So those are just some of the, basically the actions that we've taken over the last year and a half or so that have basically delivering results, not only for the finance department, but delivering results for the town, and driving costs in the right area, and proactively investing in the right areas. Pam, you have a question? No?
I'm fine.
Okay. I just wanted to point out a couple other management actions that have actually taken place. You know, the collections of past due alarm violations led to $365,000 in collective revenue. Town participation in the UI Energy Independence Program, resulting in payment of $10,880 this past year. Getting involved with the Trans-Canada Consortium for Electricity with United Illuminating. That led to approximate savings of $50,000.
Hey, Kev, on
yeah.
that first one, what type of alarm violations are those?
Those are police, special duty, and fire. I think fire is included in those as
Is
well.
that fire?
Actually, it's false alarm
False alarms, yeah.
violations.
Repeated false alarms.
For repeat
Exactly.
offenders, for
Good, because if
businesses.
we remember from some of our thing last year, they had kind of come up against their capacity limit, right, the fire department. And we kept on
Right.
saying, well, why don't we go to the root cause, because they said 70% of them came from
False alarms.
false alarms on the post road, and one way of getting somebody's attention is to have them pay a fine.
Right.
So it's
Definitely.
not only a revenue enhancement, it's a potential expense.
Correct.
Those are
Saving.
just more for kind of the repeat offenders, more than that.
That's accurate.
Right.
After the third
Right.
false alarm,
Exactly.
the ordinance requires
That's
fines.
fair. I think that's very fair.
Right. And, you know, the practice of, we've talked about this, I think we just talked about this at our last meeting. We had the practice of mailing out the reports, the annual reports that have all the financials. Instead of mailing them out to every resident, now they have the opportunity to come in here to Town Hall and to pick them up here directly, which has saved on significant cost of mailing them out. Gives the option and saves the town money in the long run. You know, there was actually, even before we did that, I've had numerous residents come up to me and say, hey, you know, how come I get all this in the mail? You know, wouldn't you guys save more money if we came to Town Hall and picked them up? So,
What I like about that one, Kev, is that even though it's, quote, only $7,500, it shows that you know, good things come in small packages, and you can add up. It's kind of like gems. You know, you have a lot of them, all of a sudden you get a good bracelet.
Yep.
All right, and you know, it isn't always the $100,000 stuff. So for our own workers in town to be looking for the small stuff, maybe that's just my background from my mom, but I like to see that on there.
well,
That's nice.
the small stuff adds up
Yeah.
over time.
You know, it's only 0.1%, maybe 0.1% of the budget, but it's an attitude.
So those are just some of the key items that I wanted to focus on with 0607. I mean, obviously overall it was a good year. We did, the team worked hard to save money. First Selectman has done a great job on different areas within the financials to kind of take proactive management actions to make you know, Orange more cost efficient. So with that, I will entertain any questions. If there's none, then I will move on, and we'll move on to the agenda to the next item, which would be the Amity financial update of the current year, 0708. Jim,
No questions?
no questions.
Okay, I've got a different presentation, but it covers two topics, and it basically starts out like this, and it's something you've seen, style you've seen before. And these are the things that I would like to give you an update on. I broke them into actually 5 pieces, but the bulk of it is the 2 that Kevin mentioned, obviously. First, an update on the surplus and the money returned. I think it's already been into the town. Then I want to share a few what I'll call budget background and their facts. Yes, I will tell you that while I was on vacation in Key West, I spent over a dozen hours working on this. Okay, it was raining that day. It wasn't raining. It was cloudy. And then I want to go through fiscal year 0708. I'm going to show you the same charts that we have. I would like to go through those charts. I got one handout, actually. And then a discussion, and then the questions can be directed to Jack. And I'd like to limit that on to 0708 first. And then we'll talk about the budget for 0809. And I have selected panels from the presentation that was sent out to all of us. And then I've got a small thing about budget implications for our taxpayers. This is the first item. Last time back in September, you saw that we were going to be getting $209,128 to Orange, okay? And it wasn't official. It was unaudited, as you can see up in the top corner there. And we finally got it official. And we finally got it official recently, and now we get this $219,570. I'll be happy, by the way, to send this PowerPoint file to everybody. I was working on it recently. So anyway, so that's what we got. Now, to summarize this, this means that since 2003, Amity has returned over $1.6 million. I didn't call it budgeted money this time, John. I just call it money to the town of Orange. I accepted your edit from last time. And you can see where that money came from by year. Okay, there was a big chunk there in 2005, and that's when the new administration first came in. Jack and particularly Dr. Brady. But in any event, I just wanted to mention that that's the money that has come back over those years from Amity. And that's just a graph of the same thing. So if you like graphs, there it is. If you like the regular one, there's your numbers. Okay? All right, second one, a few budget background effects, maybe a couple of minutes on this. I'm not sure that everybody in town knows that approximately, it's not exact, so if anybody wants to hold me to it, fine, that approximately we got 3 chunks of the budget, and they're all about a third. Amity is about a third, that's our children from 7 to 12. The Orange Board of Education budget, that's K through 6, and the town itself, all right? And those 3 components make up the town's budget. And so I'd like, if there were people out there watching, or I used to be a 7th grade math teacher, I would expect 7th graders to be able to garner this in. Now, the second fact that I think is going to become very important as we go forward is to talk about this reval that we did. And I use my tax numbers, and which is I paid pre-reval $5,278 for my home on Lambert Road. The impact of revaluation on residential taxes would have been an increase of $932, an 18% increase, if we, and that, by the way, is if we did it all at once and if there was no increase in budget. Now, what we did do, and this to me is the graph that explains it, and this would be on the 7th grade math test, all right, which would you rather do? Would you rather have no phase-in, A, and pay that amount, $932 over a 5-year period, or B, would you rather phase it in over that period of time? I left the numbers out, I just left it conceptual. I had read in materials that when we went to reval, we guaranteed 5 years of tax increases. And I would say that statement is correct. I would also say it's a good idea. All right, because or else I would have been spending $932 additional on each of these. I mean, for me. Now, somebody else might differ, but that's the way I kind of look at it. All right? So the phase-in of the state mandated reval was, in my mind, a good decision. Not only that, because it doesn't matter what my mind is, it was unanimously supported by, I believe, all of the Board of Finance and all of the Board of Selectmen. There will, however, be an increase in taxes next year because of the phase-in of this reval. And Pam, if I've got it right, I know it's 2.96%. I just couldn't do it. All right, 3.0. It's going to go up all by itself because of the reval. Okay? So we have to keep that fact in mind when we're talking about budgeting for following years. All right, so that's fact number 4. All right, with the reval, you're going to get 3% increase if the budget doesn't go up at all. Now, so what we're really talking about here of these budgets, the Amity, the Orange, and the town, is that what's going to be the impact on residential taxpayers? Me and everyone else. Well, whatever happens with those budgets, whatever that turns out to be, and then you're going to have 3% on top of that because of the reval phase-in that everyone supported and was a good idea. So I think we all have to at least accept the fact that this is where we stand here in January 2008. All right? That's fact number 5. Okay. Now, if I may, I'd like to go to the Amity Financial Update. All right? Just as a reminder, here's the Amity Finance Committee. We all know where it started a number of years ago. We now have a different chairman. Bill Blake, the chairman of the Amity Board of Education, is the acting chairperson. And Joe Abatello, also from Orange, and Steve Bortner are from the Amity Board of Ed. And Janet Brunwyn and Matt Giglietti and myself are on that. These are the roles and responsibilities we have, and numbers 1, 4, and 5 are very important. Our job, our role, is to supervise the development and monitoring the district budget. That's item 1 there. Item 4 there, review compliance with an adopted budget on at least a monthly basis. That's what we're going to show you in a second. And we're going to review and discuss the superintendent's proposed annual budget every year. In this case, it's going to be fiscal year 2008, 2009. So this is our job, that's what we're there for, and that's why we meet regularly. Okay, this is the document, and now I would like to pass out so you have it in front of you. I don't expect you to do a quick read, but if we could just pass out one of these. This is the document. I've got about 3 up to Kevin and Pam, Kevin, and John. I'll pass one over. Okay. This is where we stand. I'll walk you through it. You've seen them sort of before. Okay, it's December 2007, all right? We have here a number of columns, and I'd like you to direct you to column 2, 3, and 5 primarily. All right, column 2 is our budget. All right, this is an income statement. Okay, this is not on that document I just handed out. It's a background thing, okay? And so what it means is we have revenues here, we have expenditures here, and then we're going to be asking the question, okay, we have a budget, all right, where are we right now? So if you can see right here, our revenue is projected to be $40,773,000. We're actually projecting now $40,869,000, so that's a favorable, right? We've got more revenue than we, that's our, what we're calling December, that's Jack's forecast for where we're going to be at the end of the year as of now. This changes every month, okay? Down in the expenditure side, we were expecting the budget to be $40,773,000 right there. Last month, in November, we were at 39.1. Now we're at 39, a little bit under 1, 091. So that's a big variance, all right? All good, as we say. So the total is $1,000,007 favorable at this point in time, okay? So now what I wanted to show you is this, how we do our budget review process, how it works. Now again, I don't want to bore you with all this stuff. We have a lot of meetings. We go through this stuff, but we basically, Jack prepares the Excel document. What you have in front of you is a document that's handed out, and for me, it's sent electronically every month so I can review it prior to the meeting. All right, and it's the changes from the prior month. You'll notice stuff in here in bold. That tells you, okay, this is December. Oh, in bold, that's what's changed since last time. I don't have to read the whole thing. All right, but I do have a record of it all right there. All right, and that's the handout I just gave you. And just like we do here, we review and discuss new items, budget transfers over a certain amount, I believe it's $3K, and advice and counsel on whatever matters might be coming before it. Again, what is the roles and responsibilities of the Amity Finance Committee? Okay? So I just want you to know how we go about that process. Now what I'd like to do is dig down slightly deeper into first the revenue and then the expenditure side, revenue side. And remember earlier we said we were favorable by $96,000. Right? This is the detail behind that. And so you can just eyeball it and say, okay, where are we higher or lower? And I just wanted to point out that, maybe like ourselves, they were expecting $65,000 in the budget. They're at now, Jack's forecast is $125,000. We're at $60,000 to the good. So a lot of that $96,000 is really that $60,000 right there, right? And these bold numbers here are just adding up each individual section as you would expect. Okay, there are other things you can check out and see. They weren't expecting any other miscellaneous revenue. It's $15,000. But whatever, you're going to get $10,000 more in rental income. But at least you now know where the numbers stand. And I think that's what's important for us, and that's what's important for the town, is 1/3 of their money has excellent review controls that we go through every month. Now, expenses have two pages. The first page is this. Remember, there was a big hit on expenses. First of all, you can see a reduction in salaries, all right? And in your document that you have right there, we'll explain why, okay? Hasn't been that much different since last time, although there has been a change here, okay? And therefore, Jack would probably write a note and he would bold it, all right? In all of the benefits category, what we can see is that we were budgeted for $5.232 million, and we now are expecting to spend, whoa, a lot less than that. That's the good news. Now, most of that comes under Century Preferred, okay? Now, that gets into a lot of details on how come this works out this way, and Jack or myself would be happy to mention exactly why.
Jack, can you tell us why that number? It looks to me that it was either over budgeted or there was some kind of anomaly that happened during the year that.
Well, first of all, let me take a minute, if I may, to explain how the budget for that line item we put together. When we were doing the budget in December, which would have been a year ago, doing the budget, we take the current staff at that time with their selections that everybody has made at that time. We make the assumption that everybody will stay, if they're at single or if they're two-person or family, that they will stay at that level. And then we get rates from Anthem, preliminary rates. And that's what we plug in, plus any changes in the staff that we know about. And that's how the budget was based.
So the budget last year was based on a 10% or
No,
7% increase, was it?
The actual increase originally from Anthem, I don't remember offhand what it was, but what happened, what caused the $700,000 projected surplus is after the original rates that we received from Anthem were dramatically reduced after the budget was passed. They included our insurance consultant taking a look at the claims that happened in a period of time after the budget. And
Right.
fortunately, the claims became very good. They actually went down. On top of that, the insurance consultants went out and got other quotes from competitors of Anthem. And that helped Anthem to see the light and to
They had a choice.
drive down the rates actually to match the lower price there. In addition, you probably already heard this, the Board of Ed superintendent negotiated with the teachers health savings accounts, which are lower costing. And in the first 2 years, that's voluntary. But in the third year, which would be next year, it becomes the primary plan. But even while it was voluntary, a large amount of the teachers actually signed up for the health savings accounts. And that produced savings that we could not have forecasted. Now, in my analysis that you see, the detailed write-up, everything I've just said is spelled out. Let's see, it would be on the handwriting. So Jim gave this one on. Be on page 4, actually the bottom of page 3 on to page 4. It spells out what I've said and gives you some numbers associated. So that's how that came out. It was a series of good things that happened after the budget was put together. But again, we based the budget on best available information in December, as we're doing now.
So basically now, for the upcoming budget, you basically got a quote from Anthem
Yes.
for about 6.6% increase?
Actually, the
or-
quote that we originally received in the budget was almost 17%. And that, and I didn't use that for the budget, I used 14%. Because in the process of getting 16.8, I immediately said that's not really very good.
Yeah.
And so there's been discussions, and now it's been 14%. But that doesn't mean that's the final rate. That's the rate in which the Dr. Brady's initial 3.31% budget is based.
Well, the figure that you have in the budget is actually,
Well, we,
Yeah.
again, so you understand, we did not build a budget based on last year's budget. What we did was, the budget's built on the actuals.
no, that's what I'm saying. It's actually about a 7% increase. You had said it was a 14. You saying it was 14
Well,
from
I'm
budget to
saying the
budget?
premium rates are up 14%.
Well, premiums, Kevin.
The
That's only a
premium
piece of
rates. And as a matter of fact, if you go, maybe this might be
I don't think we
somewhat-
should do this. We should stay on 07, 08. That would be my
We can
recommendation.
get into it in the 08 budget. That's fine.
Uh,
But while we're on the
But
topic, yeah.
but staying on that, we built it on the lower, yes, actual premiums are lower, and we built the budget based on the actuals moving
Correct.
forward.
Right.
I had the good fortune of changing an error in the title while you guys were talking. But anyway, that's, Kevin asked a question about this particular line item. As you can see on your handout, that you can see on page 3, it does say line 8 on, and so it is reasonably easy to follow, particularly if you see it every month. In the bottom part over here, purchase services, there was a $300,000. A number of things contributed to that. And you can read about it, or you can just say, "Hey, that sounds like good news, a good management practice." I can tell you that when the consultant came in, because this was over a period of months on this line item, it was through discussion with the Amity Finance Committee and then at the initiative of the Amity leadership, Jack and John, that they, I think, took a very strong management action that resulted in this. So even though it's well under budget, to me, it was a very, very good
If I may mention
leadership
this,
point.
add to your point, the items of workers' compensation and general liability insurance was based on information we received from the insurance carrier. In other words, what the base was for the actual premiums plus what the insurance carrier was saying. We went out after the budget and actually bid it, and it came in significantly under. So that was over $100,000 in that alone.
Okay, let me just get through the next one here. This is the second page of the same type of thing, just because you can't get them all on one page. You still have your favorable 1.682 million seven almost on the expenditure side. Couple of things, and Jack can tell you a quick story, and I'd like him to, on utilities, which because we're coming in 500,000 less.
Well, we did similar thing to what Orange did. We joined an electric consortium. It wasn't the same consortium, but we basically it was the same deal, where we got a very favorable rate, and that is the major part of the savings because we have a lower than budget price. The other side of it is we're getting the benefit of the new school HVAC systems. Also, we've had commissioning and all the things that the facilities department has done. Jim Seiss, our facilities director, and the efforts is done by his group to implement changes along with the new systems, which has reduced significantly the amount of kilowatt hours that we've actually used. Now, we based the budget, because we didn't know, we hadn't gone into the building, we based it on a consumption formula that had been applied by SLAM Collaborative, and we spelled that out in the budget because they had done similar buildings in Haven. That was over 7 million kilowatt hours as far as their projections. We were ending up doing 5.3 something million. So it's been lower consumption, and it's been the electric consortium with the lower price. And those actually, all those things are factored into the budget for next year.
Not to be surprised, oil used for heating went up significantly. I don't know as that takes a great deal of explanation to all of us who are getting $600 to $800, well, my house, $620 when they come to fill it up with oil. So all the more reason for all of us to be concerned about our budgets. And then we have supplies, including utilities. Jack, that's a large number. You want to just give it an overview on that one?
Which one are you looking at?
The number 39 there, line 39, supplies including utilities. That would be over on page 8, I believe.
You're looking at the total, 39?
No explanation
You're looking
there.
at the total.
Is that the total for the whole thing?
Includes, which basically is the electricity.
I'm going to have to get my man to build those things.
So that's,
Yeah, I think
that's the net of the electricity and
numbers
the oil.
subtracted.
Thanks, you guys. Okay. So that's the whole section. Thank you, guys. So down, as you can see, those are the major factors that make up the 1.682 for the expenditures that are less than what they were budget. Okay?
Well, what's going on in the line item called repairs, maintenance, and cleaning? So it looks like about $500,000. If I'm looking at the right line.
Which line is it, Kev?
31.
Yeah, it's,
31?
31?
Yep.
yeah, it's about on,
We budgeted
Actually, it's the next one up.
629.
that's
It's
about
the
on
utilities I'm
budget.
looking at, I'm sorry.
That's about
Okay.
on budget.
It's utilities excluding heat, I'm sorry.
You know.
All right. A lot of that going around. I just did it. Okay. So again, I just made a revenue increase. We had favorable interest income. The insurance, we just talked about that. There was a small a favorable on tuition expense where you do check it. Obviously, there was a favorable on utilities excluding heat, negotiated lower rate and less usage than planned, and of course the unfavorable on oil. Okay. So that's for the current year, and this is just, again, just a summary panel of the one you already saw that kind of summarizes it all. All good for 0708? Okay, then what we want to do then is the document I gave you a week ago and on the 16th. Now, what I did, the schedule of activities, we are meeting most likely next Monday, but possibly the 11th. And the way the system works at in the Amity, Dr. Brady and Jack, or particularly Dr. Brady, Superintendent Brady, wish to have the Amity Finance Committee vote and get input prior to having some form of a vote. Obviously, they then want to take the accepted or the voted upon budget and then bring it to the Amity Board of Education. And they're targeting November 11th.
February 11th?
Excuse me, February 11th, thank you. 2 weeks hence. And so that's what's going on in terms of the schedule. All right? Now, in terms of the panels, what I did and what I propose to do is to come back over here to the materials here, the superintendent budget, and what I created, Jack, was a version 2. Okay, and the reason I did this was I took certain panels out of the document, the 100-page document I gave you guys. It was pretty clear some of these were PowerPoint panels, right, when they started the numbers. So what I did is I took what I thought was a good overview, but it didn't have the same page numbers on them. So I just put a footer down here. All right, if you see this, I created that, okay? And what I propose is to briefly run through this with you, and then have you, all of you, unless there's some showstopper, then have you ask questions of Jack on any of it, including the materials that are not in this presentation but are here, many of which are obviously Excel documents, which I can then pop on the screen while you guys are talking.
And that's the package that everyone got in a envelope.
That's correct. All right, and we got, I guess, a week ago or something like that. So anyway, the budget development process, it's a long one. It's a thorough one, in my opinion. All right, they began in October. There was a lot of work between the departments, the various content leaders, the principals, and the central office at Amity. All right, it took a 4-month period. They then come to the Amity Finance Committee, and they presented this on January 16th, okay? Then they will be going to the Board of Education and then out to the communities. Okay, on page 12 of the handout that you have there, all right, there were some budget drivers, and you can see them. They are wish to expand science research, add a director of guidance, increase Mandarin Chinese. They wish to have an enhancement on the Educational Center for the Arts. Again, you've seen it. I just want to have it in front of us, okay? Perhaps for people who, if they watch on Ogat, this is the type of material that gets presented. There are other drivers here. Again, now page 13 of your document. And again, middle school program improvements. You can see them listed there. Mandarin Chinese, compensation for content leads, that's about $3,000 a year if you want. Adding coaches, technology technician, part-time CTM writing paraprofessional, and district program improvement. So again, Jack is not necessarily an expert on all things that go on curriculum-wise, but he does know the numbers. Okay, but he'll answer anything that he can under the caveat that that's not necessarily his line of work, all right? But he knows a lot, obviously. Okay, other things coming in now on page 14 of the document that you have in front of you. A lot of special needs issues. Incoming 7th graders, higher tuition for outplaced students, transportation for outplaced students in private facilities, professional technical services increase. Okay? So there's the page that you've seen. I just want to make sure everyone can see this. Now, some of this is balanced by some of those gains that we just talked about or alluded to, or Jack can add more to if you wish. Obviously, the middle bullet there, the electric consortium program has lowered electrical costs. You can see that. Jack alluded to the health savings account for teachers. That's going to be things that's going to be helpful in terms of the budget, and also a reduction in working men's comp insurance costs as well. Okay? All right, now there are some other budget drivers. This again is page 16 on the material. I didn't know we had a build going on like this. Isn't it cool? But in any event, there's your data. And some, obviously, the debt service increase goes up. We just built the high school. We got a lot more bills to pay as a result of having done that. All right, my man over here, Ralph, you can help us with all that, okay? Okay, all good. And obviously, oil, just like the rest of us, we're all dealing with how to pay those oil bills. Okay. So, summarizing it then on your page 18, that if you have, and again, the increase is 3.31%, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. contracted salaries is a component of that increase, all right? Debt service is a major component of that increase, as is new staff proposed and purchase services, and all other accounts are down about 1.5%, so you add it all up, and that's where you get your 3.31, all right? In terms of the data then, and this is, for some, a much better chart, what we have here is the fiscal year 2007-2008, broken down by major categories, and there is your 3.31. Now again, this 2007-2008 is what was in the budget, okay? What was in the budget. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so you can see that debt service took a big chunk, purchase services took a significant increase, salaries went up, all right, negotiated settlements with teachers, okay, benefits went down, all right, for the reasons some of which we've already talked about, and we can get into whatever we wish. Okay, that's page 19. Just a couple more, guys. Now over to page 26.
Hey, Jim, hold up. Can you go back
Yep.
to that page for
Sure.
1 second? On the salary side, those are all contractual base salaries? Is that correct?
Those
All
are
on
the-
contract?
Those
The
are
increase?
They are contracts. There's a smaller group of people who are non-contracted, like myself. In other words, they're not
Correct.
unionized, I should say. There's
Right.
a small portion of that. And for the contracts, which would be the support staff, which is a smaller amount, I used a reasonable increase, because all four of them are under negotiations for next year. But the biggest piece, the teachers and administrators are all locked in. So they will be contracted salaries. They will be very close, I'm sure, to what's in the budget, based on the staffing that's proposed.
Okay. Again, this is just the overview. This is your page 26, and I thought this was important because this starts to get your share of the total budget, what component comes home to Orange, all right? As you can see, this year we're a little over 45%, but the ratio and numbers and how they do it each year, Jack can talk about the methodology, but it's consistent from what I've seen from year to year. And so for next year, it's going to be 45.7%. Now, that 0.7 doesn't sound like much, but it's going to translate into we're going to owe more of a larger pie because our students more are going there. All right, that's just the way it is. So I wanted to make sure that was in there for that reason. And the end result of it, again, it's under revision. Call this version 1. There's version 2 to be developed, and but let's assume it to be in the same area or zip code or something. That our allocation would be this amount of money next year, which would be a 4.84% increase. Again, budget, right? Budget. Now, we've already seen that actuals are less than budget, but we can talk about that. But this is what they're coming in with at this point in time.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we extrapolate that out to actuals, it's about a 7.5%, almost 8% increase from actuals to budget.
Actually, if I
Based
may-
on your forecast, from where you're forecasting today.
Well, no,
right?
on that point, your real increase is notwithstanding whatever the forecast is, you're really, whatever the budget is, that's what you had to pay. So it is truly budget to budget.
Oh, I understand that concept.
On the amount for the
Right.
allocations.
Right.
Right.
But I'm saying from based on where you're forecasting and where you're putting together your budget plan for next year.
Mm-hmm. I understand that part of it, yes.
Did you guys use your baseline as your
We
forecasted
used-
actual, or?
We absolutely used our actual. I'd be glad to go in. I don't want to cut out Jim in here, but I could actually go into the specific actions we took that related to a close review. We didn't just say, okay, here's the budget, add X%. Absolutely not. And I could take you through.
Is this document being-
Well, I think that might not be. You're welcome to pass it on. But for example, in the employee benefits, I was talking earlier in response to your question, Mr. Chairman, that we based it upon the current actual people and premiums, not the budget at a higher level. Another example, which I mentioned earlier, the insurance that was bid, the lower bid that came in under budget for workers' comp and general liability insurance. The projected increases on the lower actual, as an example. The electricity, which we talked about being lower because consumption is lower, the price is lower. We use the lower, on the base of the lower consumption, and we use it on the forecast of numbers with a reasonable increase that we thought would go up there. I can go on with more examples. In terms of the salaries, we recognize that we had in the turnover people coming in that were replaced at lower salaries. We had a savings in that.
Right.
So we've identified 6 or 7 specific people that have already said that doing it. That came out to, I'm trying to remember, about $140,000. We went ahead and made it $200,000. And the reason I did that is took a look at several years going back that we've seen this turnover savings. So that was incorporated in the budget. Another thing, I don't want to go over it, but I go right down the line. Yeah. In the tuition, we found that taking a look at several years, we've had anticipated people coming in, and it has been under. So we took out, in some of the cases, anticipated, sort of like a contingency, and said, if we're wrong and an additional person comes in, we'll cover it by the contingency budget of 150 that's been on there. I can give you more of it, yeah. But yes, to answer your question, we absolutely did look at actual.
Just to let you know, guys, I've gone through the PowerPoint materials as I stated I would, and there are selected files, so for while you're talking and for people who might be watching at home, what I'm doing, for example, is when I hear Jack talking about what you have on page 33 through 36, that's this document right here, okay? So we could target it. There's one way of handling it, and I'm not saying we have to, is we could target it when you ask a question of a particular line item, at least we could fire it up there. And then, for example, back over starting on page 37, going all the way to about 56, I believe, that's this Word document. As you can see it now, if you just looked at page 37, you can see that what you're looking at on this screen is exactly what's in your document. So whenever we get to a situation, we can use the benefit of Jack being here, which is primary, and this is just to focus the channel the discussion. So I'll just throw it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a couple of comments,
sure.
If that'd be okay with you and,
sure.
And the board, and appreciate Jim doing a great job in his presentation. First of all, the superintendent was not able to come tonight. He wanted me to make sure that I said that. He had another meeting, and I believe he shared that with both Jim and the chairman. But he is eager to come later in the process and present to you, as he's done in the past, a detailed presentation of what will probably be at that time the approved Board of Education budget. Second thing that he wanted to make sure that I told you, which Jim had already mentioned a couple of times, is that he is in the process of making some changes to the budget. So the budget that you see now will be somewhat lower, slightly lower, something, I don't know exactly what the number will be because he hasn't made final decisions. The other thing is that in doing the month-to-month forecast, we do everything we can to have full disclosure.
Oh, it's a great concept.
And we put right on the table not only what we're projecting, the forecast, it's not an actual in any way, shape, or form, as Jim has pointed out. It's the best guess, and it does change. But it's the best guess at the time, and try to provide as much detail in the reasons for it so you can see it. The next point really goes right back to Dr. Brady's philosophy of managing the budget, is just because there is a surplus doesn't mean that we look to spend the money. And with that, the Amity Finance Committee sits there and we come right to them and where we think it makes sense to do something that was not budgeted, we bring it to them and we need approvals. Now if it's under $3,000, for a budget transfer, we have the authority to do that, and we report every single budget transfer of $1 or more. It doesn't make any difference. But if it's over 3,000, we come and we explain what it is. We look for the support of the Amity Finance Committee, and if we get their support, then we'll bring it to the Board of Education. So all that said, along with the answer to the question of the chair, we took it very seriously, as we always do, that we wanted to get the budget as close as we can. We don't want to have a big surplus. It's not our idea. We don't want to be short,
Right.
but we don't want to put lots of stuff there. So there was never a intent to just put it there. Because we, Dr. Brady certainly, and myself, we absolutely understand that you know, it's taxes for everybody, and we're not looking to come with a budget any higher than's necessary. So having said all that,
Well, why don't we open the floor? Questions?
John.
John?
Chuck, I heard from a couple of residents about your forecast, and I hadn't known anything about it until I think I got one of Jim's emails a couple of weeks ago. Is there, you said you don't want to spend it, is there anything on the table, or do you foresee anything on the table that would take a big chunk of that between now and the end of the year where that money could be returned to the taxpayers?
if you're talking about the $1.7 million dollars, there is. One of the items is the OPEB trust.
That's the number one.
The
thing we
OPEB
should
trust,
talk
which
about.
is $546,000. We had, I hate fiscal years, I get confused, but I believe it was January of last year,
Sure.
the Board of Education set up an OPEB trust. Everybody is familiar with that?
Yep.
And that was set up, and in the budget, Dr. Brady had in the budget and was approved by, recommended by the Amity Finance Committee and then by board and ultimately by the taxpayers to fund the annual required contribution for this year out of funds from last year. You with me? And when we came around, in fact, when I came here about a year ago, I had said, I believe, that we weren't planning on doing it in the following year, which is one coming up there. At the time, I had no clue that there would be this kind of money here. So we've included that as a recommendation, because in reality, we have to fund the OPEB trust. And if we were to be able to keep the money and not return it to the town, then we can put it directly in the OPEB trust, and we can start earning the value of that. If we returned it to the towns, it would have to be as part of the money that would come back to us. So one way or the other, it's either give it to you, then you give it back to us, or we keep it. And if we can keep it and put it in the OPEB trust, and earlier, we actually get the benefit, if you will, I'm sure you can appreciate it, when the actuarial report's done. So we thought that it made sense, and that's one of the recommendations that would be made.
I would,
I was just going to ask, because I saw that on page 53 where you had reserved the 546, but I'm trying to find it. I thought it was also in the current projected operating budget also, so my question would be, are we doing it twice, or would it come out?
No, sir. And I want to explain this whole, on that, if I could refer to the handout out here, if you go to
page 36.
Page 36, I think you already were there, column 3, under the proposed, Dr. Brady's proposed budget, line 47, you'll see there's the operating expense of the $546,294. So it's in the operating budget. But if you flip to the earlier page, on page 34,
It's in there.
line 18 on the revenue side, line 18, column 3, right here,
546.
you could see the
Thank
same numbers there.
Right.
But that money would come from by the
The surplus,
proposal
okay.
this year's
Correct.
funds. Does that answer the question?
Yes,
Yes,
it does.
yeah.
I
Okay.
saw in your literature about the payment for it, and I
Those
hadn't
two.
seen the
Yeah.
the
So,
revenue
so the
side.
reason is,
That's
yeah,
great.
we could return that money to the town, but we would need to get it back,
Right.
and I explained the
Right.
reasons why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
What about the generator? You have in the plan the generator?
I don't want to supersede the superintendent, but I believe that you won't see that on the revised version.
That's a $500,000.
I will just to say that, so just going to throw it away.
Okay.
Dr. Brady, the communities, Bethany, Orange, and Woodbridge have talked about the high school as being the facility that be used in case of a disaster. And he discovered that, notwithstanding what other people or he might have been thought, that the building did not have a generator that could keep everything going the way it is. We have the temporary lights go on and stuff like this, but don't have a generator. So this is not something that was needed for the school system. This was an idea that if they wanted to take it out of the surplus money, the three-member towns might consider that an advantage. After some discussions, I believe, with the first selectmen and other, the decision was, let the towns want to take care of it. They could work out their own situation, and that's why that came up.
If I may make a general comment about page 53, which will not be seen by people at home, but it basically talks about potential applications of the year-end surplus were it to remain there. All of those changes, other than the one that you brought up, Kevin, about the OPEC trust, which financially makes sense, okay, would have to first of all go through the Amity Finance Committee. And there were a number of sidebar conversations, I would say, between the three representatives from the member towns about page 53 when it didn't get discussed in detail, but it was put out there, and I think it was great that it was put out there so that everything was on the table. But it doesn't mean that that's part of any budget. It's just in the budget document. So I'd encourage us for tonight to be looking at the budget rather than what might be done with the surplus outside of that OPEC trust. I think that there's plenty of questions we could be asking, and I look forward to hearing them. Jack, I have a question. Back on the page
35?
starting on 40, it starts to talk about changes in the expenditures here, right? Now again, and now I'm looking at some of them here. These are new hires under this, in this budget. And I remember one of them was an electrician.
Right.
And I remember writing down, I'm hearing the words, and just like, for example, when we bought the equipment, we basically saved money on custodians because you have better equipment, you can get more work done, and so there was a savings. Do you know of any projected savings on projects that a maintenance electrician might accomplish?
Actually, in here,
This would be page
I got too many
41,
numbers. I think
guys.
it's about
41,
31,000 if I remember the number, but I probably don't get it right. But there's a number. Might as well look it up. Yeah, it's somewhere in there. There is definitely will be a savings by having an electrician, because right now we have one maintenance person who does not have an E1 or E2. And if we have electrical work, we have to hire an outside contractor. And we believe that we will have enough work to, we think conservatively, save $31,000. It could be more. Plus the fact that if you go by the rule of thumb of a certain amount of square footage, we should have more than even 2 maintenance people to take care of the 3 buildings with the square footage that we have. And we've been doing it with 1, and with all the new equipment and everything, we really do need at least a second. So this has been in the budget and then taken out of the budget the last several years, Now that we've got the expanded high school and the new equipment, Dr. Brady thought that this was time to bring it forward and put it in the budget. It would be, it really would be needed. And we would have an offsetting savings from contracted services.
Well, we
Are
do
you saying
also-
typically you spend $85,000 a year for contracted services?
No, we wouldn't have a dollar for dollar. What we've had is, we went through the budget. I want to get try to remember exactly what it was. But I went through the budget, and we've identified, I believe the number is $31,000 that we took out of the budget, that we would have had in the budget for electrical services. And I think that would be the minimum savings. The cost of this, and that would be on a yearly basis, and the cost of this electrician is estimated at 53 plus benefits, so probably be somewhere around $72,000 with benefits. And we think there's value in it, not only in saving the electricity, but by our one maintenance person has done yeoman's work, and again, and being part of helping to run the HVAC system, so we have been able to have savings in the consumption, and we think this is just another positive thing for the district.
And the benefits is what do we use, Jack? 30% or 25%? How do we?
The benefits we figured for a two-person. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but.
But in other words, you just can't say, okay, we're going to 53,477
Yeah, it's
there.
about
I mean, it's
70,
plus some.
Yeah, 70, 71, 72, somewhere around
Okay.
that area. Yeah.
Okay. So whenever we add more staff, we're adding staff
Yeah,
and the
and we
benefits.
spelled out the benefits where you have in here benefits for the staff that's shown is about 75,000. In other words, right under on page 41,
You're right.
the first check thing, benefits for new hires, as mentioned above, is 75,000. I haven't spelled that out for individuals, but that's what it would come to. And that benefits not only medical insurance, but be FICA and Medicare and pension, all figured in.
All right, so there's your chart on salaries or new salaries. I didn't see a lot of reductions in salaries.
Actually, I thought of where the number is actually in here. It's Dr. Brady's executive summary in the beginning spells out why we need all the different things, and he's got, yeah, I did remember right, on
Roman numeral page 9.
Roman numeral number 9, it says the cost of this position would be offset by an estimated $31,300 since we will no longer contract for services of electricians. That's spelled out there under, it says non-certified district. It's the last sentence there on page Roman numeral number 9.
Okay. More questions for Jack?
Anyone?
Or me?
I would just say, given the fact you guys have done a fantastic job up here, your finance team with this forecasting concept. I've come from many years of being in business and working for corporations where we use this type of model and forecasting every month, and it's very rigorous, and I understand it's a tremendous amount of work. But given the circumstances of this year's budget, and not just your budget, but everyone's budget collectively and for the town, and Jim shared with you the slide on the impact of reval, even before any budgets are approved above 0%. And because this forecasting proactive model seems to be saving you guys money, you got a team that's in place that's taking, decisive management actions to save money and to become more efficient. What area within the budget, I understand the impact of salaries and debt service and utilities. Those are kind of fixed costs that you kind of have to deal with. They're contractual costs on the salary side. Utilities is a given, living in this state. But what other areas of the budget, like under supplies and purchase services, what other actions could we take, or could your board take, to kind of reduce the impacts to taxpayers that are on fixed incomes and dealing with, utility costs going up, gasoline's going up, oil's going up, their Medicare costs are going up.
Right.
What areas of the budget would your board be willing to take action on as far
Well,
as?
I can't talk for the superintendent of the board. I'll tell you some of the actions that are being taken and will be taken. We bid everything.
Right.
I mean, we put it out there, and since I've been there, we just bid everything. And for example, the medical and the general liability insurance hadn't been bid for a while, and you could see the significant savings in that. And we've got other things as an example. Going into the electricity consortium, was a big savings. We are constantly looking for ways to save money. There's just been numerous things that have happened, over the years, and over the last, since I've been here, trying to find ways to save money. As an example, when we actually expanded the high school by 80,000 square feet, and with the new system, we actually eliminated a vacant custodial position. What had happened, and lose track of the years, 2+ years ago, when I came in, let's see, end of the first year, right around June, a custodian resigned. And I went to Dr. Brady and said, I'm not absolutely sure. We might find a way to do things more efficiently. I'd like to not fill the position. He says, great, let's go for it. And I had a study done of the custodial, of everything being done. And the study said if we can go out and get it's about $50,000 worth of new equipment with training and so forth and so on, we could actually do it with one less custodian. So even with the larger capacity, we went to the Amity Finance Committee and then to the board with their recommendation to the Board of Education, and with some year-end money, we got the approval to purchase about $50,000 of new equipment, an automatic scrubber and burnisher and stuff like that. So we had automatic things helping to speed up the process. So there was a position that had been in the budget, it was taken out. This was in last year's budget. And one thing great about our associate Casbo, School Business Association, they're constantly sending out emails back and forth, and you see other people's ideas and into meetings and try to implement some of the things. So we're absolutely looking for and have implemented real savings, definitely. And we don't, just because it's in the budget, say, okay, we're going to spend it. It's always a constant thing to look for. For example, we had in the budget to update our fixed asset system. It hadn't been done since 1996. 10 years. We had to do it. Should have been done every few years. And we had a certain amount of money in it, and we ended up doing. We got an outside contractor for a lower price. We also did some of it in-house. And so these were things that were enhancements. So that's just, I could give you a lot more examples. And some of them are smaller amounts, as you had pointed out, maybe only a few $1,000 savings, but they have added up. And as we go past, part of the money that isn't spent is because it was budgeted, but we've gone through the review process as we're going through. We don't just sign in. All the purchase orders, by the way, are signed by both myself and Dr. Brady.
Right.
So just because it's in the budget doesn't mean that people are going to be able to spend it. And there are always questions asked if we think it's important. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're constantly looking at ways of saving. I guess in terms of your question is driving.
No, I've actually seen this. I've seen the savings, and you guys have done a great job. And what I'm saying is, over the past 5 years or so, there's been a continual progression of you guys managing the budget so tightly that you're obviously sending back hundreds of thousands of dollars back to the towns. So we've seen a trend over the past 4 or 5 years of this happening. And I'm just saying, from a budgetary standpoint, since you have increased productivity, increased efficiency within your operation.
We're trying to take that, and honestly, we weren't anticipating this kind of surplus.
Okay.
Honestly, we weren't. I mean, I tried to explain some of the specific reasons that happened after the budget was going in. If we had known then what we know now, the budget would have been lower. So when we're putting together the budget for next year, we've tried to take into account, as I spelled out some of the major ones, what we know. And for example, we're using 14% for the Century Preferred. That does not mean that our insurance consultants aren't out there trying to get it lower, because those are the third set of preliminary rates we've got from Anthem. And we're going to continue to try to do that. We're going to be putting everything out to bid that's over the limit that we're supposed to have. We hope to get better rates. But as an example, we had our insurance agent told me, for purposes of budget, use 10 to 15%. Now, in the past, I would use the 15%, being very conservative. I use 10%. Now, it could come in at 5, it could come in at 20. I don't know what it's going to come in at, but that's what we tried to do, Mr. Chairman and board members. We really would like to be closer to where it should be. But again, no matter what the budget is, if we could save money, we don't say, oh, we better spend it because it's going to make us look bad. No, we don't look at it that way. Dr. Brady looks at, we really do take a look at every line item, every account.
No, I know you guys do, yeah.
No, I think your track record suggests that, Jack. Not yours, but the whole thing. It's just that as we look at budgets and the impact of reval, and we too have oil for heat, and we look at, as we see on the overhead here, all right, per person or per student expenditures going up in the high 6 to 7%. It gets in. We'd love to spend. Gordon knows I can't take any more pictures of kids and give them, but there comes a limit, and we have to be sensitive to that too. Seniors want to know how much of the budget gets applied to them. I guess I'm moving closer to their age, but our spirit is there. And we know you've done that. Amity does a great job under your and John's leadership, and we're in a tough year, I guess is what it is. I'm sure the superintendent would say it himself if he were here. We fully recognize that the taxpayers who have supported Amity for the construction project, for the budgets, we greatly appreciate it, and we are, and Dr. Brady and the board, everybody wants to make sure we bring, that Dr. Brady would say, he wants to bring a responsible budget forward. And he is in the process of reviewing the 3.31% budget. I can't say what the final number would be because I don't know. He's got to make the final decision. He hasn't yet. It will go out. There will be a meeting of the Amity Finance Committee, as Jim had mentioned, on February 4th. And they will be presented with Dr. Brady's revised proposal, and then from there, by their comments, will go to the Board of Ed. But Mr. Chairman and board members, we greatly respect the comments you made. We really do, and this was an effort to be fiscally responsible. It really was. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate your position being the director of finance and
I'm not the boss.
not the superintendent. So I'm
not my budget.
Exactly. I'm gonna reserve, my comments probably for that meeting where, this might not be the year for a new director of guidance, but that's not your purview. But one of the comments that I'd like you to possibly take back, or Jim,
what do you got for page number?
I'm on page. I guess it would start
34?
No, not even there. I'm just probably 48, 49. Some of the things I was looking at, because you're going to have a surplus, we just don't know how much. And on these pages, it doesn't, but, you know, we want to watch every dollar, where you have textbooks, which I'm assuming will be used more than 1 year, as opposed to the periodicals, and there's an increase there. And we have, you know, new printers, which is another, hopefully, long-term asset. It'll last more than a year. You know, if the finance committee or your board would consider, you know, possibly taking those out of this budget and using the surplus for it.
Can I address that there? Because that, if it could, one of the things, like you mentioned textbooks, one of the things that we cannot do, and Pam will say this with the auditors, you cannot pay out of this year things that you're going to use next year in a school budget. I'm sure the same thing would apply with the town budget. So these are the textbook needs, and I will point out that the original numbers, actually, when all these numbers came in, the total budget, we were approaching 11% of requests, and every one of those requests had a good reason behind it, but Dr. Brady recognized that that was just not going to happen.
Oh, they always have good reasons. I agree with that. It's just,
So Kevin, you were looking on which page again, now that I found
it was
it?
on 48, 49, and then there was, I think on the, yeah, it's on the top of 48 also, some repairs to the softball fields and, you know.
Yeah, that,
I just, you know, because our town, the way we operate, if the money comes back to us, it goes into our fund balance,
Right.
and we've been of the mindset that we don't use fund balance for operating expenses, because the next year we're going to have a deficit. So I'd rather see, you know, if we
well,
could.
here's the thing, if I may. I don't mean to cut you off. You wanted.
No, not at all.
You suggested that maybe if some of these needed things could be coming out of this year's fund or
Out of the
or not.
surplus that
Out of the
you're
surplus.
projecting.
Well, that's always a possibility. But again, it goes back to an earlier discussion about, you know, how much of the surplus will we use or not use, how much are we going to return. That as Jim pointed out, that certainly was some comments made in that regard by some of the members of the finance committee, because we had in the thing we had about $297,000 of some items
Right.
that were listed, and I could go through every single one of them if you had the time and desire, here or outside, and tell you why each one of those things are necessary for safety or whatever. I mean, I could really give you the reasons for that. But again, we're trying to be judicious. The superintendent's trying to balance how much money we want to, you know, to give back to the towns, how much we want to use, and so forth and so on. And in all cases, again, repeating what was said, every single new budget item, whatever it might be, that list that is shown as a suggested list, some of the things that you're talking about, or whatever it might be, would go to the Amity Finance Committee. They're just not just done.
Right.
If they're under 3,000, a few smaller items, things, but they're all reported nevertheless. I don't know if that answers your question. It's kind of I'm talking more generic than on the specifics.
I've seen it happen, Jack, in the last couple of years, and I don't know about the got to spend it in that year's accounting rule.
Yeah.
But I do know that I have seen items in a budget get taken out of a budget. It was 2 years ago. And then later on in the year, when we did have extra money, something that looked awful similar to me came back and was funded. Now, it may not have, it may have been something that could be consumed in that year. I don't know.
Those were,
I think that's,
I could talk to specific, I believe what you talk about, Jim, is some textbooks that were purchased in mid-year, but they were going to be used for that next semester. You know, they could have been purchased the following year if there were good reasons to purchase it in the current year because they were going to be used for the next semester. And for that reason, we did go, Dr. Brady did go to the Finance Committee and then to the board to get that approval. We try not to do that too often.
well, it does seem to be, as I just highlighted on the overhead here, more than doubling of textbooks at the high school, even if it has been scaled back by judicious and just reasons. Because for every taxpayer with a student with a need for that next textbook, there's a taxpayer who's trying to pay their oil bill and their seniors, and we're just you know, looking, we're just trying to, and Kevin, keep going if you got, you know, those things.
Yep.
But I would say if you're right, it's a 132% increase.
Right.
But I think if you were to look at the budget it's going against, for '08 budget, you see that the middle schools in this year are about $53,000 each, and the high school is $34,000 this year. So you see that, so it's, yes, it's a big percentage increase, but this year it was considerably lower. And again, it's not just, you know, add a certain percentage. It's just that there's a detailed list of what books we would plan on purchasing.
Oh, you can find that detail list in the back, and I'd be happy to walk you through that. Because I had questions
I think
about
you
it.
understand this, but I'm just saying it's just not a number picked out of whole cloth. It really is something backed up.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, just the assumption in the last, and again, getting back to which fiscal year it fits into, the 9th grade was moved to the high school.
That's right, sir.
So was that budgeted, were the books budgeted to, just theoretically, for a lack of a number, a third less books included in the junior high because of that? I mean, I know you can't.
It wasn't done in that, what was done was the principals, the director of curriculum and development, the superintendent of schools, the department heads, all the people that I was involved in the process, that would be involved with the textbooks, all figured out what they felt their needs were, and those went right up the line to be reviewed ultimately by the principal and then by the superintendent of schools, and then decisions made and which ones would stay in and which ones would come out. So there was a process by which of developing the needs from the lower level, and then going up the line to the principal and curriculum of curriculum development, and then up to the ultimate decision maker for the proposed budget by the superintendent, and then of course to the Amity Finance Committee and to the board. We didn't have that kind of detail, but that was the development process. But it wasn't just say, oh, we'll just take a third, you know, on that. It was a specific list of looking at the number of students, what they were signing up for, what the courses were, what books, and of course there's even a further process, and I'm not an expert at defining it. The superintendent could explain it far better than I could, but there's a whole process of going through the committees. There's a board committee, and I'm not involved in that process, so I can't articulate it, as well as the superintendent, of course, but there is a process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jack, on page 35, tuition expense. The cost on that looks like it's going up about 31%
Which line item, Kevin?
from the actual. It's called tuition expense, account 5560. It's going from 1,247,000
line 24. Okay, thank you.
to 1,006,000. It's going up about 400,000.
Well,
What's driving
again, that's from a forecast to a
to
the budget versus
Right.
budget to budget, okay. What we had here, on the tuition, I wrote this out on a little chart. I wish I could use stuff like this. In the VOAG schools, which would be Sound School, Trumbull, and anyway, for the budget for this year, the budget had 18 students.
That's the 1,004,000, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to give you the major reason for the...
Actually, Jack, I think this slide here is going to help you.
Oh, okay, good.
Team, if you go to page 46.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Good.
And I
Thank you,
believe
Jim.
Jack is talking about
Right,
this number
exactly.
here.
So you can see the budget is 18 for this year. The budget next year is 12, based on the number of students that are actually enrolled or anticipated, we expect there. Currently this year, 8 are enrolled. So the director of pupil services, and of course the superintendent approving all this, is saying that you're going to go from the actual now from 8 to 12. So that's a +4. So from going from forecast, if you will, of 8, the budget will go, if you go back to that one you just had there, you're going to go from a forecast of 8 to 12. That's +4. But when you look at budget to budget, you're going from 18 to 12. So from budget to budget, it's going down, or not going up as much, I should say. So I don't know if that answers your question, but again, that's an example of where we're using, we're starting with a base of what the forecast is, which is significantly under what what this year's budget is.
Well, if I look at the budget for 0708, you have budgeted 18, right?
And that's only a
It's the special ed
component.
below
That's only
that
a
we picked up
component
3 more.
of that. That's one piece of the numbers.
Yeah.
Because you have that's just the VOAG piece. You got the other lines there that you say. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Special ed below, where do you see that?
The chart,
Because it's
the chart right
the
below,
private
the bottom
out,
half of that.
the public out thing there. So there's different components of it. I picked out the one that
Yep.
stands out the most significant. Trying to pick the biggest pieces.
Yeah, I was just comparing the budget of 18 heads for this year
Yeah.
versus
what it-
12 of next year.
Right.
If you look at it from a cost standpoint, the cost per pupil for this year in the budget is 77,000 versus the cost for next year per pupil comes out to 135. But then I saw the special ed thing
Yeah,
underneath
no,
there.
that's
I didn't realize the
that's not
special
correct.
ed was part of
Yeah,
that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. No, it's quite different than, yes. And of course, when doing this, we're looking at not only enrollment, but since, at the time the budget's done, what the IEPs and all the, what the people know, and also what they're being told is coming from 6th grade. Because the director of pupil services is actively involved in communicating with her colleagues at the elementary schools.
Okay.
Okay. More questions for Jack? Once more around. Kev, I see you got an awful lot of tabs there, babe.
There are a lot of,
A lot of little ones.
but they're more on the head count area, so
Right.
I'll wait.
Well,
I would like, there was you had made a comment, sir, a little earlier about the guidance, director
Correct.
guidance.
Guidance counselor?
Yeah, and obviously Dr. Brady could articulate this far better than I could. If I could direct you again to Dr. Brady's executive summary, that's would be, I think it's under Roman numeral number 8. He points out, as you can see, that at the high school we are requesting a director of guidance position. This recommendation comes as a result of a comprehensive evaluation of counseling services at Amity High School. The counseling department is a vital link between students, teachers, and parents. With the increased emphasis on high school planning and college acceptance, a director is needed to manage this complex area, which includes school counseling, psychology, outreach, career, and substance abuse counseling, with a total of 15 staff. I believe, and I'm standing on kind of shaky grounds because I don't know it as well as, of course, Dr. Brady would know, but I believe among the 15, you have this person that's kind of acting in a kind of a point two as the head of it, and then also doing counseling. So with a staff that large and of the needs, which of course Dr. Brady can articulate very well, this study showed that we definitely do need a director in that area. But again,
I'm not doubting him or anything else, but I'm not doubting any of that. I'm just looking at where we are today And we've obviously gotten by without this director, and we could maybe do it for another year. That's,
Okay,
so
take
it's,
that
I'm not
point.
doubting, you know,
Yep.
so I did read his, and I appreciate everything he
Okay,
wrote,
very
but
good.
that's,
Yeah, because remember, we are saying, look at all these great academic results. We have so many
Oh,
people
without
taking
doubt.
AP, we have so many people getting
I-
into
I
great
understand
school.
your comment.
It isn't like we're saying it isn't a good idea.
Exactly.
We're saying, as we're gonna say when we close off this presentation, and maybe this is a good time, Kevin, for me to do exactly that.
Yeah, does anybody else have any other questions? Kevin?
Um,
John? Ralph? Awful quiet over there, Ralph.
This is the one I wanted to finish up on, Kevin. And I think this is one that we want all of our 7th grade math students to be picking up on, because here's the deal, using that chart that we saw earlier, all right? That, again, approximately a third, a third, a third, all right? That if there was a 5% increase in all 3 budget components, so if all of these pieces go up by 5%, I'm not saying they are. Certainly the one we just saw from Amity seems to be treading toward it. Then the town, they're all going to be adding on to the town's budget. So if there's a 5%, and then we have the 3% from the reval. Good idea to do it at the time, right? We already
I
passed
think
that
many
fact.
people would agree it's probably still a good idea.
Yeah, but we have to also know this means there'll be an 8% increase to our residential tax bills, while we're still getting our oil bills for $600. So we have to, find a way, and that's why the theme song is doing more with less, to figure out how to do more with less. And that's the challenge we all face. And that's the last slide, Mr. Chairman, Kevin, that I want to show, unless you have more questions for Jack. I very much appreciate you coming out tonight, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have one thing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get here at the end as you're walking out the door. There's I guess it's page 53. You list the forecast of I guess based on the favorable under budget of $1.8 million, and you list a series of things in there that they would like to be done. If that service is going to be there. I know it's going to be picked over or whatever, but some of the things that are in there, extensive repair to exterior doors, server room, fire suppression system. To me, with a new building, a lot of that stuff either should have been there already, or maybe should be included in normal, maintenance and upkeep. So are these things just popping up all of a sudden, or?
No, here's an example. The ones you mentioned, for example, on the fire suppression. We actually had you have a review from time to time, usually on an annual basis, where insurance will come and will actually go around and take a look and see if they see anything that they think ought to be fixed. And when they went into the server area, they noticed that there's a sprinkler system up above, and said, well, if you have a fire, smoke, whatever, and it goes off, you're going to lose all the servers and stuff, and you could lose $125,000 to $150,000, let alone the time it would take to recreate it. That sounded pretty serious to me. And you're right, I can't say that, in the original design, maybe that should have been taken into consideration. I wasn't here, Dr. Brady wasn't here, it's what it is, but this came up, post the construction.
Right, so this would be, in lieu of the existing system, this would be something that
It
would
would be
not
a way
as
of
damaging.
protecting the
Yeah, it would
the
be more
service
gas
area.
or something like
Use
that.
halon, they use halon.
Yeah.
And so that is an example. That happened to be $18,000. I would, and in my own opinion, I would argue that that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Because the cost of losing it. I said, well, you'll never have a fire, don't worry about it.
Those are famous
Okay,
last
so
words.
that is just, that's what, and we can go through each of these.
Oh,
if
no,
we
I'm
wanted to,
I'm not
but-
doubting the need for
but-
them. I guess my
I
question
understand.
goes back to the, whether that's something that should be in the planned maintenance, or is that, something that should have been thought of when the building was done originally?
Okay, the
yeah.
answer to the
Just
second
a-
part is, we weren't here when and Dr.
Right,
Brady was here. Okay.
correct.
I think you answered the question.
Yeah, yeah.
The second part is, believe it or not, on the repairs, it's just not an arbitrary number. I actually, if anybody would want, could give you and we don't even provide this to the Amity Finance Committee, but we could, an absolute detailed breakdown of how much we're planning on spending on plumbing, how much we're planning on spending on the various things, the contracts that we plan to have. It's spelled out in absolute detail. Obviously, some of the things are guesses, for example, on snow removal and sanding. But what we do is we take a look at the last several years
Right.
and try to do that. So what I'm saying, Is there money there? Well, yeah, the budget may, the actuals may come in less, yeah, we have some money and we can do it in that regard. And then if that's the case, we come back to the Amity Finance Committee. We just thought that this was a way that we could get it with the surplus. That may not be the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've identified, obviously, of a need, and that's something that certainly should be looked into.
We heard the message loud and clear a couple of years ago, where the Amity Finance Committee made it loud and clear. In fact, there was a gentleman that was on the committee, is no longer on the committee, but the other, like Jim, were saying the same thing. You know, we want to hear about what you're thinking about in advance. And we didn't get into this, but further in this thing, there's a 5-year capital improvement forecast. So, and then it's updated from last year. So it's not like we didn't think about it. It's just that you're trying to figure out where you can find the money to do it.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And I hope I didn't take too much time just trying to answer your question.
Yeah, no, you've done a great job. I appreciate you coming in. And,
Okay, well, thank you.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Kev, back to you.
Okay.
We're on item 4.
We'll take a 2-minute recess here before we move on to the first selectman.